and the cattle don't have to travel over a mile anywhere to get a drink of water, out of a drinking trough.
Did you get any advice on that from your son?
Sir?
Did you get any advice on that from your son?
From your son?
My son took advice from me.
Oh,
Yeah, I've had mine since 92.
since 92? Well, you know,
Actually, it's the other way around.
well, you know, Stanley apparently created this water trough that's unusual in that it's designed so that a small animal can walk out of it.
Right.
Now, whose idea was that?
Now, I haven't done
That
that,
was
but I'm going to
Stanley's
do, I'm doing
idea.
more of it.
That was Stanley's idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, Stanley's idea, well, we've all known it, talked about it, but he had an opportunity to cast those concrete troughs where they'd do that, But see what you can do in a trough that doesn't have that built-in ability. You can put, now if you put like a 2 by 12 in it, a piece of board that long, it'll float. Now until it gets waterlogged, it'll float, and the birds can land on it and water. But you can put this foam stuff in it that'll float, and the birds will land on that water.
Why'd you decide to take up here in Pecos? Are we in Pecos County? Reeves County?
Reeves.
Reeves County.
Why'd you pick Reeves County?
Well, this old ranch here, I bought 2 ranches here. I bought the old White House Ranch, which is where we are. And then the ranch to the north, I bought first in 91, the old Halmanchek heirs. They'd owned it since in the 20s. And I bought it, and it just came up for sale. A friend of mine from San Angelo called me and told me about it, and I bought it. Because I thought, and the biggest reason I bought it is that I knew I knew this land was in right at the west edge of the Permian Basin, which has a mineral potential. And that's the biggest reason I bought it.
Well, it looks like that may come to pass.
And I waited to turn, and it looks like they at least they're trying to do something. But that's really what, that was the big, and I was interested in it. I was interested in it as a ranching operation too, because it was cheap land at the time, and I bought it.
Partly because when you bought it, was it in a drought?
Yeah, well, no, actually, I bought it the year before the drought hit. I bought it in 91, and then 92. I bought it in November 91, and then we had a good year in 92, and then we went into the drought. And I've had a drought ever since up till last year.
It's starting to break now, isn't it?
Last April, I've had 12 years of drought.
Yeah.
But I put the water system in when I first bought it the first year, summer I had it, and got water all over it. And by doing that, I was able to scatter my cattle out. It had places on it when I bought it that the cow had to travel 5 miles to get drink water. And they just won't do that, so they don't spread out.
Right.
And I put the water system in where they don't have to travel over a mile at that time.
Oh, that's right.
And because I knew that was, a good practice.
And
So then my cattle, the few cattle I kept on through the drought. And they made it, but it wasn't profitable. But it worked.
Do you have any?
I bought this ranch real, as old saying is, I told this ranch here, I bought 11,000 acres here for $20 an acre.
$20. Wow.
And I bought the North Ranch for $5 an acre.
What kind of minerals?
Huh?
What kind of minerals did it?
Well, it'd be oil and gas.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you think you just got really depressed after Weasel left you?
Maybe
Maybe that's why she left.
That's what they're doing for you.
Yeah.
And who's your closest neighbor?
Well, 5 miles in Noya.
That's it, huh?
It's so sad, when
To the
that-
north?
when that takes so long.
We don't have neighbors to the north for,
I've been thinking about this a
Oh,
lot
shoot.
lately, but I just hate Alcoa.
Roy Harrison, I guess
you
he's
see,
20,
you go
22 or
into
3
just
miles.
so many of my friends, and even when it's in a meeting with us, and it's
And then
just,
back east,
working at a
we're
bar, it seems like how that's the life.
5 miles
and
to
it's
a
so
neighbor.
common, it's so
And then the west, we're
it's almost like people have to
6,
have
7
it, and
miles
if they
to a
don't
neighbor.
have it, then like something's wrong.
So our
And you've
closest
got
neighbor
dependent
Pecos,
on all
which is
those
5
like
miles.
high politicians.
On
Where are your
ranch.
parents from?
My daddy did
My
dryland farming and
Callahan County,
ranching.
Texas,
Oh, wow.
east of Abilene.
Did they settle here, or were they born
Well,
here?
their parents did.
Oh, their parents.
They settled
Like
here
Virginia
way
or
back,
something?
Yeah, before the century.
Wow.
Where were they from?
My folks and mother's folks both from Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Where were your parents from, Mama?
Well, they,
Lexi's parents were from Mississippi.
yeah,
The Truitt's were from
Mississippi,
Parks.
Alabama too.
Yeah, Alabama, Mississippi, I guess.
Mississippi and Alabama.
That's where her parents were. originally from. So we're genuine Southerners. And my dad was a Southerner.
And I presume he was a Democrat. Was he a Democrat?
Lance,
Huh.
my daddy, I grew up here in Hoover. It was pitiful, the things he said about Hoover.
Really?
And her daddy, Brady Brewer, he'd cuss Herbert Hoover.
Oh my.
I'm going to take a picture. What is it?
Rabbit.
Oh,
We grew up on Hoover hogs.
eating them?
Jackrabbits, cottontails, the world. It's like the old boy said, we hunted jackrabbits on the highs with a barred dog. With support.
Granddaddy, tell us how young she was.
She was a year old standing at the church seat with her mother.
Isn't that cool? He met when she was 1 year old.
And I was 5 years older than she, so
So they've known
I
each
tell her
other
to
their
remember
entire
her when she was
life.
about that little old cotton-headed, blonde-headed girl, about that tall. Just a little girl. Yeah, we grew up, went to the same high school. Of course, I graduated 5 years ahead of her. I went to
Y'all are
served in World War II, and
she's
she's
embarrassed. They've known
13.
each other your whole lives.
Didn't mean nothing when I came back from Turkey. She'd grown up, and I got out of
I
her.
know.
And then you got married.
Then we got married.
Yeah, we drafted?
No, I volunteered. I volunteered when I was 17, went into Air Corps Reserve, and then got called active duty.
The Air Corps was brand new back then.
Sir.
The Air Corps was
But
brand
Army Air Corps.
Army Air. There was no Air
There
Force.
wasn't no Air Force,
Yeah.
right? Then, I mean, that came after World War II.
Right, right.
See, you had the Navy, had airplanes, and
In the Army. Yeah.
He's the happiest he's ever been.
And when the war was over, I was making a navigator on a bomber. If a war had lasted another 3 or 4 months, I'd probably been,
You were trained to be a navigator?
I was training to be a navigator on a bomber.
Which kind of bomber?
Yeah, oh, but you don't think so.
No, this
Well,
is how it looked like you would put
I
the
probably
cotton
would
out
have
there.
gone on to a B-24,
B-24.
but I was still in training.
And the war ended.
Oh, it is.
Did you go to Europe or the Pacific?
Pardon?
Europe or the Pacific?
Well, I didn't go either. I never left the United States.
Oh, okay.
I was still here. Now, there were 5 of we boys, 5 of we brothers, and all of us were in the war. I
And
mean, we're
this
in the
Jobe
service.
had 5 stars.
And one of them died in the walk,
Star.
in the death march, right?
And all of them went overseas, but me, I'm the only one that didn't go overseas.
Do Europe or Pacific?
Well, Europe and the Pacific.
Both.
I had a brother that was captured on Corregidor with Wainwright. When Corregidor fell in Manila
Yeah.
at the beginning of the war, and he ended up in a Japanese prison mine south of Nagoya, Japan. And the war was over August 15th, and he died September 3rd. He survived the war 1898,
He died from his treatment.
whatever. Well, they said told main poisoning. But he was at Clark Field when the war started, you know, north of Manila.
Yeah.
Fought back down on Battalion, then on Corregidor, and then was captured. 26 years old when he died.
26?
And some of these people, because I was the Iraq War and think George Bush is a blithering idiot, they think I'm not patriotic.
Well, George Bush is a draft dodging
He's-
cokehead.
Cheney got 5 permits, and Bush lied everywhere in the world to keep from going to, you know,
Chicken littles, isn't that what they call them? Chicken littles?
Yeah,
You know, want everybody else to fight.
yeah.
I think Billy Mac there for a while when George, he on TV, Billy Mac, he just couldn't stand to look at him, hear him. Couldn't take it.
I've got less
Make his
respect.
blood pressure go high.
I've got less respect for George Bush than a tomcat has a marriage license.
I know a George Bush joke.
Do you?
There's
Brazilian kind of.
Tell me about tell me what caused you to run for the legislature? What possessed you to run for the state House of Representatives?
Why did I?
Yeah, why?
You know,
Oh, yeah, you were also represented.
I think probably the real root reason, going back in my childhood, Luther, I stuttered very badly until I was sophomore in high school. I stuttered terribly bad. And I used to just sit and I'd hear Roosevelt make speeches, and I'd hear all these people make speeches on the radio, and I'd think some of these days I'm going to make a speech. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, just
Well,
now.
well, you used to sit and you used to listen to the radio, didn't you?
Oh, listen, yeah, no TV.
Oh, my goodness, when he,
Had
Yeah.
an old battery radio, we never had a radio in our house till I was 14 years old.
but he heard everything when he's delivering papers on the route.
And then I had a paper route, and in a little country town, and I'd read everything in that paper, and I kept up real good. I was interested in old Tom Conley when he was senator, and
Oh, really?
Morris Shepherd. I go back that far, seeing all, Pappy O'Daniels. I remember all of his elections. I was always
If he
interested.
passed the biscuits,
Huh?
when-
Please
Yeah.
pass the biscuit, Pappy.
Please pass.
It had his hillbilly band. I like mountain music, good old mountain music, played by a real hillbilly band. I've heard of Williams play in the land of Ricky, but I must say, please pass the biscuits, Pappy. I like mountain music.
so he would sing, huh?
Yeah,
The governor would.
yeah. Oh yeah, that was Pappy O'Daniel. And then, but finally, when I was about sophomore, I started getting work, and my mother worked with me, bless her heart. I'd look and try to say something, I'd start stuttering, and she'd say, now, Billy Mack,
He asked him the
just
question,
stop, be
why
quiet.
we heard-
Stop. Now you think what you're going to say. Now, she was my speech therapist. And, but anyway, finally I got to where I could talk. And I talked to him, I've been talking ever since. And
Well, you
so
make a
when I
great
got
speech.
Politics, well, and I'll tell you, see, Luther, in 1948, see, I was on the ticket with Harry Truman and Lyndon Johnson. When Lyndon Johnson won with the famous 87 votes over Jefferson, and when Truman beat Dumont votes, see, that's the ticket.
That's right.
And anyway, but I got out of campaign, walked up and down the country road, and made speeches all the time, played the piano for the kids, just had a good time. And I got 87% of the votes. You can't have that. The whole back bench of us was lined with black soldiers from Camp Martin, going on the bus home or somewhere. And the last 2 or 3 rows of seats were black guys, all in the bus. And that's the way it was those days. And when we got off the bus, and this was the first really time that I had a real awakening as to how unfair and indecent it was. I was going to be sworn in as a soldier. They were already soldiers to take the same oath I had, took later. But when we got off the bus, the man was standing with the bus driver, and he hit the block. And this man turned over the guy that owned the restaurant, and he stood there, and when the black guys came out, I was just ahead of him. He told them that you go to the back door, you'll be served out of the kitchen.
Ugh. Ugh.
Now that's how it was in those days, and that is a fact. I heard it, and I grew up in the county that didn't have a black man in it, and they didn't allow one in it. Now that's how.
In the
and
county?
You're talking about 1948.
And you
after
wonder
the
why
war.
the majority of the people in the prisons are black.
But and they made those black soldiers go to the back door.
And they didn't object. They,
No, they just accepted it. It was a matter of fact.
That was just life.
It's a matter of fact.
You better stay up here.
And at that time, I think it's when I turned really to realize that black people were, were put. It was. I have been delivered papers as a kid on the streets of Putnam, Texas, on my way right down the road here. And I've actually heard old men sitting, I thought there's old men, 40s, 50s or whatever, sitting on the curb. Highway 80 went right down the road, right down in front of the curb of Main Street in Putnam. I've seen a black man, black people, a black man that'd be hitchhiking. This is back in, 30s and 40s, Depression days, poor days. And I've seen a black guy be walking through town with a little something on his back, or maybe one got bumped off of a freight train on the railroad there, the TP railroad. And he'd come down there on the street and going to be walking on, going westbound, most of them, parts of the Great Wrath, and be going west, and those men sitting on the street corner, reputable farmers, ranchers, whoever in Putnam, it's a pretty good little town those days, and be sitting there, and they'd say, "Black boy, don't you let the sun set on your head, single foot right on out of this town." Morty, that's a fact.
I believe it.
And then we've got people today. I heard a man standing in a feed store in Pecos, Texas, hadn't been over 4 years ago, a very reputable man, rancher, in this county right here, make the statement, Well, if they wanted to really stop, and now here he's worked wetbacks for 60 years. I'm talking about Mexican wetbacks. All right. I heard that man stand and say to me and 2 or 3 others, I had to turn and leave. It just made me want to puke. But he said, if you really want to stop these wetbacks from coming across the river, he said, when we catch one on this side, said we ought to cut one of his ears off and put him across the river. And then if he comes back again, cut the other ear off and send him across the river. And we'd know who they are. Now can you imagine upright, and this man was a director in one of the banks here. Prominent rancher. Now he's moved out of town now, and I won't call his name. But now people that are that radical and narrow-minded still in this country. And I'm going to tell you, folks, there's more of them than you think. You got them in El Paso.
Oh, sure we do.
Yeah.
And you got them in Pecos. You got them, our neighbors, our friends. And then we talk about that we're going to settle the world's problems and we're going to make all these people like. The only reason we're in Iraq is for oil. That's all the reason we're there. That's the only reason we're there. We ain't there to help those people.
I know. Can you imagine what the Chinese think when Bush comes over there and starts
Oh,
lecturing them about human rights?
You talk about grinning up their sleeves. Man.
Yeah,
Now, Luther, do you think I can make a speech at the next Democratic convention?
I think you
I was
can.
wondering what that
I think you can.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
We
See, I
can't
read
settle
that off of it, yeah.
We can't settle it in Putnam, Texas. We can't even settle it in Pecos. We can't clean up the city. We can't clean up the county. We can't even make them efficient here looking at them. And how are we going to make it efficient in Washington?
was. Or Iraq.
Or Iraq.
Please tell
Or
me.
Iraq. I thought that's what it
On the
was.
race deal,
Race or anything else?
there's always
Danny.
going to be racial tension.
Blowing the money. We don't have efficiency. Half your city employees work about.
It's real strange, huh?